Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lane Russell, and this is Midnight. I'm sorry I've been away for a while. I had to let the beard grow back in. Oh, don't die on me. There you go. We've got another candle. I want to use this one until it's done. Remind you once again, this is a work of opinion. Entirely my own opinion. I didn't consult anybody, or nobody told me what to write or say. So, there you go. Well, the whole Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman thing is behind us now, and the best and most intelligent thing to do would be to get on with our lives like mature, civilized people. Unfortunately, we live in a country where we have entire industries dedicated to keeping that from happening. No, we're going to be talking about this long after today, when this should have been yesterday's news, so many yesterdays ago. So sit back, relax, and prepare to hear about the self-righteous, self-indulgent indignation of thousands of people who literally have nothing better to do, because we're going to be here for a while. So here's what we know happened. 26 February 2012, 6:24 p.m. Trayvon Martin buys a bag of Skittles and a can of watermelon fruit juice cocktail. He begins walking home in the rain. While on his way home, he begins looking at a vacant house. George Zimmerman, local neighborhood watch captain on patrol that night, sees Martin looking into the house and calls the non-emergency number for the Sanford Police Department. He gives a rough description of Martin's appearance, and I've lost my place. He gives a rough description of Martin's appearance, not volunteering apparent race until prompted by the dispatcher. Zimmerman answers affirmatively when asked if he is pursuing Martin and is told that it is not necessary. Zimmerman gets out of his car. There is a fight. Zimmerman shoots Martin. Based on these known and undisputed facts, there were two courtroom narratives developed. The prosecution's narrative was that Zimmerman pursued Martin over a course of 4 minutes, caught up with him, and killed him in cold blood as Martin fought for his life. The defense's narrative, the one that the jury found way more plausible, was that Zimmerman came upon an unknown man acting suspiciously, called into the police what he had seen, broke off pursuit when told to do so, was jumped when he got out of his car to write the address of his location, and was forced to fire on his assailant to defend himself once the assailant, Trayvon Martin, made known his intention to kill Zimmerman with his own gun. Now, there is no problem with either of these narratives. They are both legitimate interpretations of the events that went down that night. Unfortunately, neither of these is sexy enough for the media or the public, and so we are forced to deal with the aftershocks of a third narrative, a fictional narrative that did not happen, and yet has very real consequences. This is the narrative that was pushed by the media with such dogged determination that many evil, ignorant, and just downright stupid people have not only swallowed it whole, but can't help vomiting out all over every single social media platform in existence. In this dystopian fairy tale, evil white supremacist and wannabe cop George Zimmerman set out from his underground lair of evil in search of black children to victimize. He found an angelic 12-year-old child on the way home from buying candy and tea and pursued the poor frightened tyke, cornering him in the middle of the street and shooting him in cold blood. After which the evil, racist Sanford Police Department showed up, took one look at the dead kid and said, "No biggie," because, racism. A year later, 6 female jurors, unswayed by the powerful testimony of the prosecution, decided to acquit because reasons and racism. Now voices are raised in protest of this obvious violation of human and civil rights, with gifted and brilliant orators like Malik Zulu Shabazz of the Black Panther Party, Al Sharpton, NAACP President Benjamin Jealous, and other brilliant and gifted orators demanding the blood price that was denied at the trial. Now, if you've ever had any doubts as to whether or not you're an idiot, ask yourself this question. Does narrative number 3 make more sense to you than either the prosecution or the defense narratives? If it does, I have bad news for you. You're probably an idiot. Are you echoing Malik Zulu Shabazz's call for a war against the natural-born white devil? You're an idiot. Are you calling with Al Sharpton for civil charges against Zimmerman just because you didn't get the verdict you wanted in court? You're a huge idiot. Do you believe the shooting was racially motivated and the biggest danger is more George Zimmerman's? Boy howdy, are you an idiot. Do you agree when the NAACP calls the Trayvon Martin verdict a modern-day lynching? You are both an idiot and completely ignorant of how our court system works. You see, Zimmerman was not acquitted because he was white. In fact, he's not white, not completely anyway. He's half Peruvian and half Jewish. In other words, he is exactly as white as President Barack Hussein Obama. The media wanted, needed, had to have an angry white man so badly. They didn't even bother to check whether or not he was really white. They just assumed that since he had fair skin and his name was George Zimmerman, that he had to be a white Anglo-Saxon. The very kind of racism and hypocrisy that the media pretend to be offended by. When they were caught in that lie, they doubled down on it, claiming Zimmerman to be a white Hispanic. Now, one of my liberal friends is very fond of pointing out that white Hispanic is actually a valid option on a government application form. And the truth of the matter, however, is that no Hispanic I know, even that really cool Venezuelan girl I was chatting up the other day, identified themselves as white Hispanics. In fact, they don't even like the name Hispanic, they prefer Latino. But the media can't make money from the story of a half Latino, half Peruvian shooting a black football player. Zimmerman was acquitted for more than one reason. Firstly, the circumstance of the shooting did not line up with second-degree murder. You see, Florida requires that the prosecution demonstrate that the accused perpetrated by an act eminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, although without any premeditated design to effect the death of a particular individual. In other words, you were acting like an idiot with reckless disregard for human life, even though you may not have attempted to kill anybody. Either that, or Zimmerman would have had to have killed Trayvon while perpetrating or attempting to perpetrate trafficking, arson, sexual battery, robbery, burglary, kidnapping, escape, aggravated abuse of an elderly person or disabled adult, aircraft piracy, unlawful throwing, placing, or discharging of a destructive device or bomb, carjacking, home invasion, aggravated stalking, murder of another human being, aggravated fleeing or eluding with serious bodily injury or death, resisting an officer with violence to his person, or a felony that is an act of terrorism or furtherance of an act of terrorism, none of which Zimmerman was involved in that night. So the jury obviously could not convict. Secondly, the prosecution did a horrible job trying to prove their case. Their witnesses did not support the prosecution's narrative, and the star witness was completely unmanageable. In fact, the conduct of the prosecution, as differentiated from prostitution, which is a similar although completely different thing, the conduct of the prosecution had the effect of strengthening the defense considerably. Had the jury convicted just because a bunch of loudmouth crybabies at MSNBC are using Zimmerman for their 2 minutes hate instead of George Bush, the case would have been thrown out on appeal without delay, and Zimmerman would have grounds for the mother of all lawsuits. In fact, he does. Zimmerman's lawyers are reported to be going up against MSNBC for their unconscionable handling of the Zimmerman case. I think they should broaden the lawsuit and include CNN, ABC, and NBC. And I hope Zimmerman takes Al Sharpton to court along with the media that abused its position for the purpose of inciting racial hatred and violence. The media must be held accountable for the monster they created when they put two out-of-date pictures of Martin and Zimmerman for us to see, without telling us that the angelic-looking 12-year-old was actually a 6-foot, 160-pound 17-year-old high school football player, and the angry-looking white man was actually a 5-something overweight half-Jewish Peruvian whose black neighbors had asked for his help when they were victimized by someone who had perpetrated a rash of break-ins in their area. You see, these neighbors came to Zimmerman for help. When he did, he organized a neighborhood watch for his community. They took turns patrolling the street, donating their time to watch out for their neighbors and keep their community safe. Zimmerman mentored black children so they could have a role model. Zimmerman didn't care about skin color. He was the kind of neighbor we all want, the one who will give his time and resources to have your back. And I hope that there are more Zimmermans in this country. But the media can't profit from that story. They need money. They need exposure. And they remembered the LA riots after Rodney King's officers had been acquitted. So here's my speculation. I believe they jumped on this story thinking that it would only be a matter of time before storefronts were burning, people were looting, and other people were dying. And if they could grow it into a full-on racial conflict, then the nation would be glued to their TV sets and smartphones and computer screens for up-to-the-minute coverage of how the race war was going. They could parlay one dead black child into drama such like the country had never before seen, make metric buttloads of money, and they were willing to endanger the lives of civilians and build on the corpse of a dead kid to do it. So did Trayvon Martin need to die? Was that absolutely necessary? Absolutely not. Even with his height, his build, and his aggression, Trayvon was essentially a kid. He was a kid working on a criminal pedigree, fond of smoking weed, and a dab hand at sending misogynist tweets. But kids do stupid stuff when they're young. For the most part, they get through it relatively unharmed, having sustained injuries that should kill a normal man. And then they go on to have children who do stupid, sometimes life-threatening teenage shenanigans. We've all done things we cannot be proud of. If Trayvon had stopped to talk to Zimmerman and not reacted as he did, if he'd just said he was on his way home, or even if he had just gone straight home and not stopped to look at a house in the rain, he'd be laughing about all of the stupid stuff he did at 17 and 20 years. Instead, one of the stupid teenage things that Trayvon decided to try was racial profiling and starting a fight with an armed man. Another fact of life is that when teenagers do stupid stuff, they usually survive, but not always. This time, Trayvon's teenage shenanigans cost him his life. The tragedy is not that the gunman was acquitted. The gunman's life was in danger. The tragedy was that no one had thought to teach Trayvon the adage, the common sense adage, that there is always someone bigger, badder, more skilled, or better armed than you are. No one taught him that not all confrontations need to escalate to violence. No one taught him the value of not being a jerk. Malik Zulu Shabazz, Eric Holder, been jealous of the NAACP, and Al Sharpton are now crying justice for Trayvon. Justice has been rendered, and these four clowns in that clown college have nothing to do with it. They have no moral authority to speak here, no reason anyone should listen to them or take them seriously. They are nowhere to be found when black youths kill each other over even stupider circumstances. Eric Holder especially has no right to admonish the people to lay down their arms when he armed Mexican drug cartels during Fast and Furious. Al Sharpton was especially silent when 13-month-old Antonio Santiago was shot in the face by two black teens who attempted to rob his mother. Mr. Jealous and his organization have sold off most of the integrity and honor that was once the NAACP's hallmark. And Mr. Shabazz, where are the race riots this clown promised? Could it be that black Americans are smarter than Shabazz thinks? Could it be they have more constructive things to do than plot the racist mass murder of people they don't know? Don't tell these fools, these harlots who whore themselves out to the highest bidder. They are as timely as George Jones, as relevant as a blatherskite, as helpful as a rusty dagger in your thigh, and as useful as a champagne enema. I would like to extend these people a personal appeal. To these people and their clownish organization, I ask most humbly that until you care about all children, and not just the ones that can get you coverage, until your concern moves you to instruct black children to be valiant, noble men and strong, confident women, rather than just wringing your hands over some of their graves and ignoring others. Until your cry is justice for all, instead of revenge on some, in the name of your flavor of the week, I implore you, shut your idiotic pie holes while grown people are talking. My name is Lane Russell, and you've been watching Midnight.